Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report, and one of our new styles of daily editorials where there is a video component to this interview. It is a company update from IsoEnergy, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol ISO, and on the OTCQX under the symbol ISENF. I am joined by the VP of Exploration at IsoEnergy, Steve Blower. Now, Steve, I wanted to bring you on the show to outline some of, more specifically, this drilling that is right around the corner for IsoEnergy. Now, I have been chatting with you and the president and CEO, Craig Perry, a number of times, really explaining and walking people through this newer discovery, the hurricane zone. It was discovered technically a couple years ago with initial drilling, but some of the recent drilling over the last year and a half has really shown that there are some high grade intersects, and this is a very exciting uranium discovery. Now, in full disclosure, I am a shareholder of IsoEnergy. I will be interjecting questions here with Steve, trying to make sure we get the most out of this mini presentation, again, that's focused on some of these near-term catalysts. Steve, kick us off, please. Give us just a quick little overview of the hurricane zone and this whole discovery area.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Cory. Appreciate the chance to be on here. Yeah, I mean, hurricane's been a very exciting project for IsoEnergy, obviously with the discovery of a brand new zone of high-grade uranium up in the Athabasca, quite close to all that important infrastructure. So mills, power lines, roads, everything you need to put a uranium project into production up there. So yeah, no, we've been really enjoying it for sure.
All right, well, Steve, let's get into this. Okay, obviously, disclaimer.
Sure.
Everyone's
a disclaimer.
seen that.
If anybody wants to see it, they can see it on the website. And really, this is what it's all about. This is a core photo from our drill hole LE20-34. Some incredibly high-grade uranium mineralization in here. 8.5 meters at 34% uranium between the yellow bars that you see on the core photo, and that includes a much higher grade section of 5 meters at 57% between the red bars. And that is the best hole that we've drilled so far at Hurricane, and it's actually the second best hole drilled on the planet this year of any commodity, if you convert it into gold equivalent grams per ton times meters. So yeah, it's a terrific intersection, some super high value rock there, but it's not the only intersection of high grade uranium that we've had recently. And this did happen in our last drill program, the winter 2020 drilling, which wrapped up in March of this year. And you can see the list of other intersections on there, just a whole bunch of spectacular uranium intersections. Yeah, so that's the hurricane zone. Maybe a little bit more about the company, just in case your listeners aren't all that familiar with IsoEnergy. We're spun out of NextGen. NextGen, when they discovered that incredibly rich and large and disruptive Arrow deposit out in the western part of the Athabasca, they had a little bit of a challenge in that they had all this other prospective ground out in the east side of the Athabasca that they weren't getting any value from. And of course, investors in NextGen expected all the capital and efforts of the management team to be focused on Arrow. So they spun out their eastern assets to IsoEnergy, and so that's how we got started. So our focus is clearly the Athabasca Basin over on the east side. The team, we've got a lot of experience in the group. I mean, certainly the NextGen connections help there a lot. Craig Perry, CEO, he's an exploration geologist who came over from Australia, one of the founders of NextGen, and he came over to run IsoEnergy, and geez, he's just done a terrific job at incubating this company and delivering some success here to shareholders. We've got a bunch of geologists on the crew. Andy Carmichael, senior geologist who I've worked with for many years in the basin, and is really responsible for the success that we've had so far at IsoEnergy. Justin Rodko, project geologist, just a really bright, young, dynamic geologist, a terrific asset, and really a broader crew of explorationists that are just a pleasure to work with. And we've been taking advantage of low uranium prices, trying to build our portfolio in the Eastern Athabasca, and have had some success at that. And I'll talk more about that shortly. And just using our strengths, using our capabilities in capital markets, Craig's capabilities in capital markets, I should say, which are formidable, and all of our exploration expertise to position the company as the investment vehicle of choice. So, and that really takes me to where we are now with our portfolio of properties. We started when we were spun out of NextGen with 6, actually 5, really postage stamp size properties, really nice properties, but a fairly small footprint. And so we've been under the cloak of this bear market for the last bunch of years, really ever since ISO started in 2016. We've been trying to build up our land package, and that's clearly been successful. We're now up to somewhere in the order of 21 properties in the eastern side. We've grown from an initial 6,000 hectares up to just over 260,000 hectares. So yeah, some good success there for sure.
So Steve, it's important to note too that your guys' focus still is on this Larocque East and the hurricane zone, right? Well, what is the strategy with acquiring all of these other projects? Is it potentially to have JV partners, or do you expect one day to maybe get some drills on some of these other projects?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a combination of the two. We absolutely see an opportunity here coming with an increase in uranium price to generate all kinds of value from ground in the Eastern Athabasca, whether it's through JVs, divestments, or exploration ourselves. And we will limit exploration for ourselves on the highest priority properties. And so we currently think of 4 or 5 of these as being the ones that we expect to explore ourselves. Yeah, but you're right. Focus is on Larocque East because of that hurricane zone. So we're accumulating a large land package, but really only spending on Larocque East.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Larocque East then.
Sure, you betcha. There's a map that shows the Larocque East property, the darkest orange polygon that you see there. The other orange polygons are our other land holdings in the area. So we're really looking at the northern part of the eastern side of the Athabasca. You can see some of that infrastructure that I talked about on that map. There's an airstrip down there at points north in the south part of the map where we would typically fly into or drive up the highway 905 from Prince Albert and Saskatoon. And you can see 2 mills on the map, the McLean Lake mill and the Rabbit Lake mill right on the southern edge. And so we would typically drive up that highway 905 heading for that Larocque East access trail that's marked on there as a dashed line. And that's a winter road that takes us in about 30 kilometers into the hurricane zone. And it follows that, there's a red slash on the map that is what we call the Larocque trend. And it's a bit of geology. It's really graphite in the basement rocks underneath the Athabasca sandstone. And typically uranium in the Athabasca is associated with graphite in the basement rocks. And so, yeah, that particular trend is fertile, it's mineralized. There's the Larocque Lake showing and the Alligator Lake showing that are off our property. And so when we had the chance in 2018 to acquire Larocque East, we jumped on it because of that 15-kilometer long extension of the Larocque trend onto our ground. Yeah, so that was a good deal for ISO, I think, $300,000 worth of shares and $20,000 in cash in 2018. In May 2018 got us 100% of that Larocque East property. And there were some old drill holes on there, 23 of them, in fact, that had been drilled historically. I think most of them in the mid 2000s or prior to that. And so we had a quick look at all of them, and a few looked like near misses actually that maybe hadn't been followed up well enough. And one of those was called Kerr 12. And we knew that at the time when we looked at that core that would be the first target that we would drill when we got up there with a drill. And that didn't take very long. We were actually exploring on our Geiger property to the south there. We had a drilling program going in June of 2018, so just the next month after we bought Larocque East. And that program had been organized before we bought Larocque East. So it was an 8-hole program. We were drilling away. The results weren't all that good in our first 7 holes at Geiger on the 2 targets that we selected there. So with the 8th and final hole, we decided to take the plunge and fly the drill up and test that Kerr 12 target on Larocque East. And we hit with that 1 hole 8.5 meters of 1.3% uranium. And so that was the discovery hole at Hurricane. Now, it was the last hole of our program. We were out of budget, and so it was expensive flying the drill in the summertime. So we just put on the brakes and said, let's interpret our geology and get our geochemistry back from the lab, and then build a camp in there and get set up for a proper follow-up program the next winter. And that was about some of the longest 6 months of my life, actually waiting for that first follow-up drill program, because we thought we had probably a pretty neat system on our hands. And so that drilling did happen in that winter, 2019. We drilled about 20 holes. It all went well. We hit uranium in every single hole, and we were away to the races. We followed that up with a summer program in 2019 again. That went well. So by the end of 2019, we had a zone that was stretched out to about 500 meters long, 40 meters across, and up to 10 meters thick. Importantly, this mineralization is not that deep. It's only 330 meters below surface. It's only 40 kilometers from the McLean Lake mill, and it's not under any lakes or anything like that. It's high and dry, so it's easy to work exploration-wise and hopefully development-wise also.
Hey, yeah. Steve, can you give us a little insights too in these 2020 highlights, those drill results there, and even some of the high-grade result that you showed on that slide? Yeah, we hear a lot about the deposit from Next Gen. How do these grades compare to that Arrow deposit?
Sure. So completely different styles of mineralization between Arrow and Hurricane. Arrow being basement hosted, different orientation. It's steeply dipping, whereas Hurricane is quite flat and sits at the unconformity, so at the top of the basement. But yeah, some of the holes that we've been drilling certainly would fit easily into what NextGen has drilled at Arrow. But that is a truly massive deposit, so they've got a lot of them over there. This map that I'm looking at right now kind of highlights much of what we did this last winter with that higher grade mineralization. And the darker orange polygons on there show the areas that have this very strong uranium mineralization within them. And most of the blue highlighted call-out boxes on there are from the 2020 winter program. So hole 34 is up there. The call-out box is on the top left. There's a 34% over 8.5 meters, but you see hole 40 next to it, and hole 53, 52, 32A, just a whole bunch of spectacular intersections there. And so what this also shows is some hatched polygons labeled A, B, C, and D, and they are areas that we have highlighted as being the most prospective for adding more of that very strong uranium mineralization. And so those are the areas that we'll be targeting with our upcoming drilling program, which is scheduled to get underway mid to late August. Yeah, and so maybe just a little bit more about those hatched areas. If we look at the Hurricane zone in a cross-section view, this is a section that's quite close to the property boundary on the western side of Hurricane. We're looking to the east, so north is to the left, south is to the right. And we can see 3 holes on there, and hole 34, that core photo that we looked at initially, is one of them, 34% over 8.5 meters. Clearly, the zone is wide open going to the north. There are no holes beyond that to the north, so that's why that follow-up target area is marked there. And then the next hole over, another spectacular intersection, 21% over 4 meters. And then it thickens back up again further to the south with 23% uranium over 7.5 meters in hole number 52. And again, that that mineralization is wide open to the south. There are no holes beyond that. And there's a big offset that you see coming up in what we call the unconformity, which is the contact between the Athabasca sandstones on the top part of the section and the basement rocks on the bottom part of the section. And that is typically a grade A target area in the Athabasca, those fault offsets like that at the unconformity. And so we expect that there's going to be quite a bit more mineralization as we continue to the south. So that's what we'll be doing with this summer's program is continuing to step out this mineralization on these sections. And this is not the only section like that. We can jump to the next section. Well, it's not the next section. This is a jump 75 meters to the east. It just shows exactly the same thing. We've got wide open mineralization to the north, to the south, and a gap in the middle there that needs another drill hole also. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing.
So does that mean this year, the upcoming drill program, it's a lot more, in a sense, exploration focused because you are stepping out of where the recent drilling has been?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep, we'll be just building our mineralization to the north, to the south. We also, back to the east of the highest grade mineralization that we've got at Hurricane, we've got a 250 meter gap along strike that hasn't got a single hole in it. We really are only 3 drill campaigns into this thing because we only drilled that one hole in 2018. So we just have lots of room ahead of us for more mineralization. Yeah, so we'll be filling in some of that 250 meter gap also with this coming program.
Steve, I've gotten a few questions as I've been talking through this story with you and even Craig. People are wondering what is to the west here. Who holds that land? Because comments have been made that, well, you guys are drilling almost right up to that boundary.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that is a joint venture between Cameco and Orano. It's called the Dawn Lake Joint Venture. It's part of a huge piece of ground that is there in the eastern Athabasca and it's been around for a long time. So that's who owns that ground.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so just maybe stepping out on this map, zooming out to get a bit of a broader picture of the Larocque East property, and really, I guess it's only the eastern half of the Larocque East property. But what this map shows is some geophysics that we've done, in 2019, last year in the summertime, and it highlights conductivity in the basement rocks, and that just means graphite basically. So you can see the Larocque trend clearly on there in those warmer colors as you go east of the hurricane zone. And incidentally, we've zoomed out far enough that almost all of the drilling that we've done at Hurricane is underneath of that red star. It's covered up there, just to give you a sense of the scale. So what we see is a bunch of conductivity coming up to the east along that trend, and in fact, it gets much more conductive than what we see at Hurricane. So that means more graphite, more faulting, and hopefully more zones of uranium also. So we think it's extremely prospective, and we're excited about exploring out there on the rest of the property eventually, but it's going to take us a while to get there because we've got a lot of work to do yet at Hurricane itself. Yeah.
So just to outline that program, if you could go back to that last slide, a couple of things to outline here for everybody is that the winter 2020 program, little over 10,000 meters, a 24 diamond drill hole program. Well, that was completed in March. How much drilling is planned to go after and attack not just the hurricane zone, but also looking at these step outs?
Yeah, so our summer program will be a similar size to that, roughly 10,000 meters, maybe slightly less, 20 to 24 drill holes. And that's what we can reasonably achieve with 2 drill rigs that are already on site before winter conditions start to get too cold up there.
What's the balance too of infill too, trying to, I guess, maybe even come up with a resource in a year or so?
Yeah, so ultimately that's the goal for sure. So we will be drilling almost all these holes in quite proximal to the hurricane footprint as we know it right now, just trying to step it out north, south, and to the east. And so we won't actually be drilling any real, distal exploration type holes this year. That'll have to wait until next year.
Okay. And you guys are cashed up for the drill program this year?
Yeah, well, especially since this morning's release, right? We announced this morning that we've raised, about 12 million Canadian. Part of it being a convertible debenture with Queens Road Capital, and the rest a private placement. So, yeah, no, that's a terrific result for us. That means we will, once this closes, have about $15 million in the bank, and we'll be set up for everything we want to do this year and next. So,
okay, yeah, that's important too, and through next year as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on from here. Let's look at the next slide here. We're getting close to the end.
Sure. So we've just put Hurricane in its position on a schematic cartoon of deposits in the Athabasca Basin, 325, 330 meters below surface, much shallower than the big mines, Cigar Lake and McArthur River, and some of the other deeper deposits that are out there. And, importantly, not under any water cover. So yeah, that's Hurricane in a nutshell. And just to wrap it up, I guess, Cory, we are really the only junior with a new high-grade uranium discovery. We think market fundamentals are changing, and we think a bull market is right around the corner. We've got a team that's done it in the past, and we're doing it again currently. And one of the neat things about Hurricane is that it's right next to all that fantastic infrastructure. So good share structure, and we see huge leverage to results. When we put out drill results, we tend to get a market reaction. So get ready, because it's coming.
All right. Well, hey, I know following along with this story, it definitely helps drilling these very high-grade uranium intercepts that it was even moving the stock before uranium started to move higher, but now being cashed up, heading through, or at least almost about to get into the next drill program here. It'll be interesting to follow along, and that's why I wanted to get everybody as up to date as possible on the plans for this drill program, because this is a new high-grade discovery in a attractive jurisdiction. Again, I am a shareholder of IsoEnergy. I'll be following up with Craig and Steve as more news comes out. If anybody has any follow-up questions, please email those to me, fleck@kereport.com, and I will get those answered for you. Steve, I appreciate this update. I hope everybody got a lot out of diving into what is on tap for IsoEnergy and the drill program right around the corner. Steve, thanks again for your time. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Cory. Bye-bye.